Hopefully everyone can see my screen now that I've shared it. If you can't, just holler, but we'll go ahead and get started. So again, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to share Zearn Math with you all. Before we dive into our curriculum, I want to start with a quick introduction to who we are. So Zearn is a nonprofit, and our ultimate mission is to support all students to love learning math. Our focus is on creating flexible, high-quality instructional resources to support daily instruction. So before we get into Zearn, I actually want to start with a math problem. I think this provides some context on how we think about teaching and learning math at Zearn. So this is a question from the 4th grade NAEP exam. And in this question, students are asked to find the fraction with the closest value to 1/2. The most commonly picked answers are 2/2 and 1/5. Of course, we don't know exactly why they're selected, but you can imagine that students were possibly trying to remember a rule or a trick, something about a common denominator or numerator as the fraction in the question. Think how much easier this problem would have been if students would have simply just drawn a picture. And when we do that, we can see that the answer is clearly 5/8. So I think this problem is a really nice example of why over the last several years, we've made this big shift in math instruction. 20 years ago, math curricula was focused on learning algorithms and practicing procedures out of context. But today, we're seeing a much stronger emphasis on a balance of important basic math facts and deep conceptual understanding to be able to tackle problems like this one. So fortunately, there are really high quality open education resources who do a really nice job of achieving that balance. So students develop authentic numeracy and flexibility in problem solving. So when we started building Zearn in 2012, we wanted to start with the very best math open ed resources that struck the same balance. For us, that was Engage New York. So that's the open educational resource, or OER, that Zearn Math is built upon. If you're familiar with Eureka Math is also based on the same OER. In other words, Zearn Math, Eureka Math, and Engage New York are all based on the same OER and underlying instructional content. So if you look at Zearn Math scope and sequence, which is what I'm showing now, particularly the color coding, you'll see a really strong emphasis on a few interconnected math concepts that spiral within and throughout grade levels. And this supports students in building that strong mathematical foundation to allow them to apply concepts flexibly to a variety of problems. And if you're familiar with Engage New York or Eureka Math scope and sequence, you'll notice it's very familiar. One question we hear sometimes is, if those already exist, why did you build another one? And it's certainly a good question. While we loved the approach behind those curricula, what we felt was missing was how to make that new approach to teaching and learning math accessible. So because this math is so cumulative, it's absolutely critical for students to have a strong foundation from each prior year of math, and it's virtually impossible for teachers to address each and every student's unfinished learning when they're teaching their whole class of students every day. So that's where the idea for Zearn came from. We wanted to leverage the best math instruction, but make it more accessible and engaging for students and teachers. So to do this, we focused on 2 things. 1, easy to use materials to support teachers in leading all aspects of their instruction. And 2, a digital student-facing component that's both personalized and directly aligned to teacher-led instruction. So taking a look at the EdReport's top-rated list, you'll notice that Zearn Math is the only elementary math curriculum that offers an aligned blended learning experience, including teacher instructional materials and a digital lesson for every day of instruction. In fact, Zearn's digital resources were the only digital resources of any curricula to be included in the review and go through the same high quality vetting process as the teacher-led instructional materials, which given virtual and hybrid learning becomes certainly even more important in these current days and times. One additional note here, while Zearn does offer a full K-5 math curriculum that's top rated by EdReports, Zearn's digital component, our digital lessons, can also be used as a digital companion for remediation and intervention alongside core instruction. And so some schools choose to use it that way, and we can talk about that more as we go. But hopefully this provides some helpful context on Zearn and our approach to teaching and learning. So with that, let's dig in and start taking a look at our approach in the classroom. So as with most math curriculum, Zearn Math's instructional model is based on a balance of teacher-led instruction and independent student work. An ideal Zearn Math block is 75 minutes, so students have plenty of time to learn with their teacher, as well as time to practice those new daily concepts independently. So let's look at a sample of both formats. So the core of Zearn Math in the classroom is focused on teacher-led instruction. Every day, students engage in 45 to 60 minutes of hands-on instruction where they're engaging in rich math discussions, using concrete materials to model their math, sharing strategies. Daily instructional materials include a thoughtful balance of fluency, application, and concept development, and incorporate rigorous problems and real-world scenarios to help students make mathematical connections. So what makes our approach to teacher-led instruction different comes back to our focus on accessibility and engagement. So with Zearn, instructional resources are designed so teachers have more flexibility, including options for whole group or small group instruction, and more guidance on how to differentiate instruction based on their students' needs. We provide fluency, application, and concept development for every day of instruction, as well as additional practice opportunities. And all those materials are easily accessible and designed to fit together, so teachers don't have to spend time compiling materials. They can simply access the day's worth of materials and start preparing and leading instruction. So let's take a look at some of the teacher-led instructional materials. To do that, we're going to dig into Grade 3, Mission 1. That's what we call our units of study in Zearn missions. The first mission of 3rd grade dives right into multiplication and division, but we're going to carefully ramp up to this grade level work by making connections to the same big idea from 2nd grade. So for example, this mission starts off with a concrete connection to the 2nd grade introduction to multiplication using equal groups to provide a supportive on-ramp to this new and challenging concept. So we're going to take a look at lesson 6 from this mission, which is focused on supporting students to use an array model to solve division problems. So we're going to dig into the heart of this lesson, the concept development, but keep in mind that each day's lesson materials also include an opening fluency activity and an application problem for students to grapple with. So here's the hands-on teacher-led lesson plan. Each lesson begins with the lesson objective and lists any concrete materials that teachers will need for the lesson. This lesson begins by building from the 2nd grade concept of equal groups to develop an understanding of multiplication and division by building an array either with hands-on counters or by drawing an array. So you'll see this in the opening problem where we're reviewing the idea from the previous day's lesson and relating equal groups to division equations here. In this first problem, students move to constructing an array to represent the same opening problem. They can then move on to representing additional division equations using arrays and can do so with both counters and drawings. This intentional focus on concrete pictorial abstract is something you'll see throughout Zearn. Concepts always begin in the concrete, as they did here using the counters, and then follow the concrete pictorial abstract progression so students can explore new concepts in an intuitive and tangible way. As we move to problems 2 and 3, students are challenged to continue representing equations using pictorial arrays, constructing them differently based on the factors in the equation, and write sentences to show their thinking. By the end of the lesson, for example, here in problem 3, we've moved into the abstract representation where students are tasked with writing a division equation where the quotient is the unknown factor. In addition to the lesson script that we saw here and the sample student work, at the end of each lesson, there are debrief questions to support teachers as they summarize and close out the lesson. And then there's also additional notes that we offer ideas for adjusting the lesson to meet the range of learners in the classroom and additional supports to help teachers internalize the lesson content. So in general, teacher materials are designed to be clearly organized so it's easy to use for planning and leading instruction. We're going to pause there on having looked through the teacher-led materials for this specific lesson, Grade 3, Mission 1, Lesson 6. And now we're going to shift gears and look at what's happening during that daily student independent work and how they're connected. So with most curriculum, again, student-independent work often includes pencil and paper problem sets or maybe a game. We often hear from teachers that there are a couple of problems with that approach. One is that it could lack direct individualized feedback, or it's a lot of work for teachers to set up and to grade. While there are some curricula that offer a digital activity, it's usually only supplemental practice and doesn't actually deepen understanding or support unfinished learnings the way that our Zearn digital lessons do. So with Zearn, students spend this independent time working on a personalized digital lesson that's directly aligned to their teacher instruction. So throughout the digital lesson, students have a chance to review and practice through a mix of fluency, concept development, and application activities. And each activity is specifically designed to mirror their teacher instruction. But even more important is how the digital lesson adapts to each student's learning needs. So while the digital lesson grounds all students in the same instructional content, as a student struggles in the digital lesson, they will receive personalized remediation and multiple layers of foundational content to support their unique areas of struggle. So students are not only deepening understanding of the lesson, but they're also having their unique unfinished learnings addressed from prior grade levels. We know it's virtually impossible for teachers to address each individual student's unfinished learning during their live instruction, so the digital lesson plays a really critical role in ensuring foundational skills are strong and making grade level math accessible to all kids. This is really the crux of what makes Zearn Math different. There's no other top-rated curriculum that has an embedded digital component to act as a perfectly aligned extension of teacher instruction and is personalized for each student's learning needs. So let's actually take a look at the digital lesson that's designed to go alongside that teacher-led instruction that we just saw a minute ago. Similar to the teacher-led lesson, this activity helps students build an understanding of the connectedness of multiplication and division using arrays. We're going to jump right into the heart of the digital lesson, the guided practice. This is where students are engaging with instruction that feels similar to the daily concept development and helps to develop conceptual understanding. Prior to this activity, students would have worked through 2 digital fluency warm-ups, but I just skipped those today for the sake of time. Let's take a look at this guided practice.
Hey there, mathematician. Let's get started with the word problem. Read this problem and imagine what's happening.
So this activity is called a math chat, and it's designed to resemble a small group setting where students learn with this on-camera teacher. So as students engage with guided practice, they complete checkpoints like this one, which give them opportunities to build and construct their math in a variety of ways and receive feedback and support if they need it. So in this first checkpoint, I'm breaking down the problem, identifying what I know and don't know. So I know the total number of fish. I know the number of fish in each tank, but I don't know the number of tanks yet. I then have a chance to process that from with the numbers from the problem. So I know there's 20 total fish and 5 fish in each tank. You'll notice as we move through the digital lesson that I have the option to have the question prompt read aloud using the audio buttons here.
Kayla?
We know there are 20 total fish, and 5 fish can fit in each tank. We're trying to find out how many tanks they'll need for all 20 fish.
You got it. Here is 1 tank. Let's start by putting 5 fish in this tank. Keep going. Put 5 fish in each tank until all fish are in a tank.
So during digital lessons, students visualize problems with animations like these fish and construct their own visual models using interactive digital manipulatives. So for this problem, as a student, I build another tank and add 5 fish to it, build another tank and add 5 fish to it, until all my fish are in a tank. And by doing this, really similar to my teacher-led instruction, it creates an opportunity to explore the new concept with concrete work so students can understand the concept in an intuitive way.
I'll put 5 fish in each tank like this. Let's write a multiplication equation that represents our picture. I'll write a question mark for our unknown, the number of groups. What is the size of each group? What is the total? Go ahead. Fill in the multiplication equation.
In this third checkpoint, students moved to representing the known parts of the problem in a multiplication equation, just as they were doing in the teacher-led lesson. So here, I know there are 5 fish in each tank and 20 total fish.
The number of groups is our unknown. There are 5 fish in each tank, or group, and 20 total fish. Now, write a division sentence to match this picture. Use your multiplication equation to help. What's the total? And how many fish are in each group?
So at this next checkpoint, students would write a division equation to match the picture, but I want to pause here for a moment and point out a few things. First, all of these blue circles along the bottom here represent a checkpoint where students will stop and engage with the activity. So just as teachers do in their instruction, the digital lesson stops often, every 10 or 15 seconds, to check for understanding and provide support and remediation if students need it. Each of these checkpoints has a similar structure. So students will work through the math, get supportive feedback if they need it, and then they hear and see the solution modeled in the video. As students continue to work through the digital lesson, they'll engage with math in a lot of different ways. We've started to see a few different types of digital representations, and as we continue, the lesson will also prompt students to transfer their learning to paper using student notes. So let's take a look at one of those kinds of notes checkpoints. Just as a quick side note, I'm going to bypass a few checkpoints here and jump us ahead, but I'm only able to do that because I'm showing this to you through a teacher account. Students cannot bypass checkpoints when they're working in their student accounts.
Let's solve this next problem in your notes. Today, we're working on Mission 1, Lesson 6. Ethan puts away 15 books for literacy class. There are 3 shelves, and he puts the same number of books on each shelf. Draw an array that represents this problem. Use a circle to represent each book.
So here we're prompted to solve the problem in the notes. Here's what the problem looks like on the computer for students on the screen. And then this is what the notes look like on paper. So you'll notice they're identical to what students see on the screen to make it really easy for them to transfer between the 2 formats. And the purpose of this paper component is to give students a chance to draw their math and represent their thinking in different ways, while also supporting their transfer and retention. After students work through this problem in their notes, for example, here, students are prompted to draw an array to solve. Other times it's more open-ended. Students will then keep working through the digital activity by pressing play, where they'll be prompted to check and revise their work. And you'll notice the paper component, like the rest of our instructional materials, is well organized and designed to engage students in representing their math on paper. So let's take a look at one more problem, this time where students are working with arrays, similar to what we saw in the teacher-led lesson. So I'm going to press play and then skip us ahead one last time.
There are 50. Kayla decorated her notebook with stickers. She arranged 21 stickers into rows of 3. Create an array to represent the problem. Remember, there are 3 stickers in each row.
So here again, students are working with a digital manipulative to help visualize the problem, this time a little more pictorially as I'm working with an array to represent rows of stickers with another real-world type scenario. You'll notice that here, though, I'm receiving a little less scaffolding than I did in that first problem. So let's say I struggle here. Instead of creating all 7 rows, I'm a little confused and I just do 3 rows of 3. When I enter that answer, you can see I get the feedback I'm incorrect and always a chance to try again. But let's say I'm still struggling, I only do 4 rows of 3. At this moment, now that I've struggled twice and continue to struggle, I'm going to receive scaffolded support to help break down this problem. So first, it helps me identify and think about what 1 row of 3 would look like. And then I have a chance to rebuild this array, this time with a much more focused area to create my, my rows of stickers, giving me only the amount of dots that I need to fill in all 7 rows of 3 stickers. So I'll go ahead and fill in my array. And then I have one more chance to process here that I use all 21 stickers when working with this array. So keep in mind, these additional questions that we just saw, this additional remediation and scaffolding, I received that because I specifically struggled in that array initially. Another student who completed the initial array successfully would not receive that support and instead would have moved right along to the next set of questions where they would then relate the array to multiplication and division equations.
Kayla arranged 21 stickers into rows of 3 like this. Complete the division equation and the multiplication equation.
Okay, I'm going to pause the video there. We've seen a lot of guided practice. Now we're going to move into the final activity of the digital lesson, which is called the Tower of Power. You can think about the Tower of Power as like a digital exit ticket. During this application work, students demonstrate their understanding of the lesson by actually getting all the questions correct, and also receive precise feedback and scaffolded remediation if they need it while they're working through the tower. I do see a couple of chats came through. I just want to make sure. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're in the Tower of Power. As students work in the Tower of Power, they answer questions aligned to the guided practice. In this first question, this actually is incorporating a review from a few lessons earlier in the same topic, where I'm being asked to identify the number of equal groups, which of course here is 4. So I'm going to go ahead and answer these correctly. And then you'll notice that once I answered those couple of questions correctly, my little tracker here on the right is filling up. Towers are structured in stages. And you can see from this little tower here on the right, there's 4 stages to this tower. They all get a little more challenging with a little less scaffolding. And again, now that I finished that first stage, my little tracker is filling up here. I'm now into stage 2 of this tower, which is where I'm getting a very familiar question, just like the one we saw in guided practice. So again, here, students are using this manipulative, just like the one they saw in the math chat, to model the problem. But let's say I'm working really quickly and I struggle a little bit, or I just make a mistake because I'm working so fast. When I enter this answer, you can see I get really precise feedback, so I can focus in on my mistake and always have a chance to try again. Let's say I still struggle though. When I continue to struggle in the Tower of Power, I go into what's called a boost. Boosts are remediation paths that are written to break down questions and scaffold understanding for students right when they struggle. Each question within the Tower of Power has its own unique boost. So in this boost, I'm invited to break down this question, first identifying the information I know from the problem. Here, how many goldfish are in each bowl. And then I have the opportunity to rebuild the tanks, this time with an example for support, just like I had in guided practice. I'll go ahead and add another tank and add 5 fish to it. So all my fish are in a tank. Once I complete the boost, I have the opportunity to go back into the tower and try again. This time with a new problem. So we generate new numbers and questions after boosts, so students can show true understanding as they work in the tower. If I continued to work through this tower, I would use my fish tanks to create equal groups and then relate those to multiplication and division equations, and also write it in a complete sentence. And then in the 3rd and 4th stage, I'd move to using an array, just like we saw in the digital guided practice and also in the teacher-led lesson. So after students successfully complete all stages of the Tower of Power, they would then complete this lesson, where they would earn a badge for this lesson, and then move on to the next lesson activity. We're going to pause here. One last unique aspect of our digital lessons that I really want to highlight is, as I mentioned earlier, we focus heavily on how the learning experience on Zearn is designed to support not just some students, but all students. And for us, an important part of that is all students feeling like they belong. So in designing our instructional materials, We focused on representing the racial and ethnic diversity found in classrooms across the country. And our digital lessons give us the unique opportunity to give all students the opportunity to see someone similar to themselves doing math and persevering through challenges. You'll also notice that throughout Zearn's instructional resources, names and problem contexts are thoughtfully selected, so no one group is over or underrepresented within the context of a particular problem. If you take a look at our state reviews, you'll see this idea come out clearly as a differentiator for us. Okay, so let's shift out of the instructional materials and come back to what this means in the classroom. As we've seen, there are two core components to a Zearn Math classroom: the 45 to 60 minutes of live teacher-led instruction and an independent student digital lesson where students complete the digital lesson that's directly aligned to that daily lesson with the teacher. And as I mentioned, all of Zearn's instructional resources are designed to be used flexibly, so teachers can design the classroom model that works best for them and their students. We've seen a lot of really creative classroom models, but I wanted to show one example of a classroom model that's really taken off among our Zearn Math users. This model is similar to a math workshop or guided math model. Here, math kicks off with a whole group opening fluency activity and a real-world problem-solving exercise, a really nice warm-up to the day's lesson, and an opportunity for students to engage with their teacher and their whole class. Then the class splits into two rotations, one with the teacher working through the daily lesson and hands-on instruction with rich math discussion, and one working on the digital lesson where they're learning the same concepts in a different format with those different modalities. The idea here is that teachers are taking advantage of the robust digital lesson to teach in smaller groups and differentiate their instruction while knowing students are working on an adaptive, aligned, independent activity, receiving the support and remediation they need right in the moment. Again, this is just one Zearn classroom model that we've seen work really well. We also have lots of folks who use Zearn teacher-led lesson materials to teach their daily lessons whole group, followed by an independent work block, either at the end of the math block or another time during the day. The idea is that every day, students experience this double dose of math instruction with parallel experiences of live hands-on instruction with you or with the teacher and their peers, and also getting that rich discussion and strategy sharing, but then also they experience that content independently with their digital lesson where they get the support and remediation they need while teachers are also receiving real-time insights about their productivity and struggle, all connected to their daily instruction. So, speaking of real-time insights, we're going to shift gears now and talk about all the additional resources that work together to support daily instruction, which includes real-time reporting, assessments, and professional development. So let's start with reports. Because of the robust digital resources that are designed to act as a companion to teacher instruction, in Zearn, teachers have access to real-time actionable data that summarizes exactly how students are doing on each lesson and where students continue to struggle. So there's 3 levels of reports in Zearn: student, class, and school. Let's start by taking a look at the class level reports designed to support instruction throughout the week. So there's 2 types of teacher reports, and there's 2 that zero in on student lesson pacing and progress, and then 2 that focus on student struggle. So this first report is the PACE report. This report helps teachers keep students on track to completing their weekly digital lessons. This top chart here provides a summary of how the class is progressing toward the lesson completion goal over the last most recent 4 weeks. And then by scrolling down, teachers can also view real-time student level data on the number of lessons completed over the last 4 weeks. So teachers can look at all of their students and see the exact number of lessons they completed each week. And they can click into any one of those numbers to see exactly what lessons students completed, when they did, and how much time they spent completing digital lessons. And then over here, they can see the last time students logged in, and they can also see more information about what students have completed and where they're working. The PACE report is great to check throughout the week, so there's no surprise to teachers about students that might be getting ahead or falling behind. The next report is the progress report, which helps teachers keep students on track to completing work throughout the curriculum. So it gives a little higher level view of student progress through their digital lessons. It shows where students are working in the digital scope and sequence and what content they've completed. So these little bars fill in as students complete digital content, and teachers can click into any one of those to see more detail about what students have done. And they can also see the assigned lesson, badges, and bonuses, just like they saw in the PACE report here. Okay, so the PACE and progress reports, again, show that lesson completion data as students are completing their digital lessons. There's also 2 reports on student struggle, the Tower Alert and Sprint Alert report. So the Tower Alert report highlights when a student is struggling in the digital exit ticket, that tower of power. So as we just saw when we completed the tower or did parts of it together, when I struggled as a student, I received that precise feedback and support in the moment. While that's happening, teachers also receive a real-time alert called a Tower Alert. And the alert looks like this. Each alert is specific to a student and a lesson, and teachers can also see information about when and how often the child struggled in that lesson and whether the student was able to complete the tower by working through the boost. So for example, you can see in this example for Porter that Porter struggled twice and has yet to complete that lesson, indicated by these 2 exclamation points here. However, another student, Jesse, struggled, worked through a boost, and was able to complete the lesson successfully, shown by this green check mark here. So in addition to looking out for students who are stuck and struggling, this report is also an opportunity to look out for and celebrate moments like these, where students have productively struggled and then persevered. Teachers can filter this data in lots of ways. They can use the Hide Completed button here, which helps them quickly identify who is still struggling and might need additional support. Teachers can also filter this report by date, by struggle, and by student, and even by content. So they can zero in on a specific lesson, say this lesson, grade 4, mission 2, lesson 2. And when they select a certain lesson in the content filter, they can identify exactly who struggled with that specific lesson, which can be really helpful as they plan review or reteaching. Because the digital lessons are perfectly aligned to their live instruction, this is a really nice resource to help make smaller groups and make decisions about how they might remediate or extend content for students. The last report at this class level is the Sprint Alert report, which helps teachers identify students who are struggling with lesson-aligned fluencies. So similar to the Tower Alerts, teachers can filter this report by date, by student, and by content as well. Okay, so those are the 4 class level reports that provide real-time data to help summarize and prioritize where teachers might spend their time in supporting kiddos. We also have a more detailed student level report. So like I mentioned, while the class reports are designed to be used throughout the week and kind of highlight things that teachers might want to address, this student level report is designed to be a more comprehensive and in-depth look at a given student across a whole year. This report can be used for everything from identifying additional intervention needs, supporting students who may have IEPs, or communicating progress during parent-teacher conferences. I'm not going to walk through all the aspects of this report for sake of time, but I do want to zero in on the student level view of the same Tower Alerts report that we just saw at the class level. So I'm just going to scroll down here. At the top of this student level Tower Alerts report, I have a quick summary of the students' alerts by week, by month, and by year. And as I scroll down, I have a clear summarized view of where a student has struggled by mission or by topic and by lesson. So you can see from this information, both the content that the student's assigned to, as well as if they struggled in earlier grades. So this is a student report for my fictitious student, Suzanne. She's a fictitious 5th grader. And you can see from this portion of the student level report, this Tower Alerts report, that she's working in 5th grade. She's had a pretty strong start to 5th grade. So in these first couple of missions, she did pretty well. Mission 3, she had a few more alerts. And now in mission 4, she's actually had a lot more alerts. Within mission 4, so now I've broken down mission 4 here, I can see all the topics. She had a pretty strong start to mission 4 also, but as she's gotten towards topic E, F, and G, she started to struggle quite a bit more. And it might be now that her struggle is no longer productive. She might need a little bit of extra support and differentiation from foundational content to hopefully get her back on track with this grade level work. So in addition to this, this student level report, we provide what we call foundational lesson guidance, which give teachers detailed information about how to support a student like Suzanne, who might need a little bit of extra support in foundational work, and help them make sense of where they might assign a child to work in their digital lessons and fill in that foundational gap. This detailed foundational lesson guide that we have details exactly where the content's coming from in lower grade levels and might be exactly what a child needs to be able to get back on track with grade level work, or provides additional layers, more clicks into that foundational content to help students fill in that foundational gap and again, get them back on track. So I'm seeing a couple of chats come through. I want to just see if there's questions I should be answering as we go. So Christy asked a great question. Does this data system have the capacity to upload to other data warehouse systems? So within the final layer of reports that we have, so we looked at those class reports and an example of the student report. There are also admin reports that folks have access to within a Zearn school account. Just to show you really quickly, there's 3 dashboards within admin reports: school goals, completion tracking, and then a student exports function. So to answer your question, Christy, what we often see is that folks will use the student exports to download the data out of admin reports and then do their own analysis or re-upload it elsewhere in the format that makes most sense for what you're tracking. So there is this student exports function that can be really useful for that. Angie asked, my school is only 1-to-1 in the building. Chromebooks don't go home. Is there a hard copy of the student work that can be sent home for students working more slowly or that maybe didn't complete the digital work in time? Angie, it's a great question. Within the teacher account, the educator account, there are paper work pages that align to the daily lesson. So there's something called problem sets and also student homework pages. So I'll just show you that really quickly. We'll just go to grade 3. I'm in an educator account, by the way, so sorry for the kind of screen changing. But within an educator account for each one of the missions, teachers have access to all of these resources. These are the resources that they use to plan their daily instruction. And then there's these additional problem sets and homework that can be used as paper pencil work if they need it for additional practice. So absolutely, there's a resource to send home for folks that need it. Cindy asks, is there a standalone program or is it more supplemental? So Cindy, just for reference, I'm going to go back to a slide that we saw before. Zearn Math is a top-rated K-5 curriculum by EdReports, and actually the only top-rated curriculum that has aligned digital materials that were also top-rated within that review. Okay, one last question, then we're going to jump back in. Oh, great. Thanks so much, Angie. Okay, So like I mentioned, in addition to the class and student report, we have that information that's also summarized in our admin reports. So that's a wonderful feature of our school accounts that folks can use to use that data however flexibly you want to use it. So in addition to that real-time reporting, we also offer a variety of assessments that teachers can use to inform their instruction and respond to the needs of their students. Our assessments focus on the big ideas of math and allow students to demonstrate their understanding using both digital and paper-based experiences. So one type of assessment is that daily formative assessment that students do in two ways. First, on the computer as the final activity of the digital lesson. This is that tower of power that we saw together. That's that digital exit ticket. And then there's also a paper-based exit ticket, which provides unscaffolded practice opportunities so teachers can see how well students are understanding that lesson content. The second type of assessment that we have are unit level assessments to help evaluate and support student understanding. These mid and end of mission paper assessments consist of open response items that require students to show their work and explain their thinking in different ways, including drawing models and writing explanations. We have answer keys available for all of these mid and end of mission assessments. And for next school year, we're developing detailed rubrics to support teachers with understanding all the different variety of ways students might respond to these assessment questions. Last but certainly not least, I want to take a look at all of the professional development resources that we provide to support classrooms in teaching with Zearn Math. The first type of PD that I want to show you is our most popular resource called Curriculum Study. Curriculum Study is designed to be used throughout the year as a resource for teachers alongside their lesson planning. We know how much time teachers spend in PLCs and preparing for instruction. So these resources are designed to be engaging and interactive, as well as available on demand, so teachers can revisit as helpful to their instruction. Curriculum Study offers an hour-long session for every unit of every grade or every mission. Each session is designed to support teachers with mathematical background information, including the big ideas of each unit and a variety of instructional strategies that students will use throughout the unit. So to get a sense of how this is used throughout the year, this is a sample of our PD calendar. So each colored square represents a unit level session by grade that teachers can use throughout the year to support their planning. What's great about this model is that the sessions can be used flexibly and teachers can engage with the materials when they need it for unit unpacking and lesson planning. So let's actually take a look at a session for grade 3 mission 1, the same unit where we saw our instructional materials.
Hi, and welcome to our study of grade 3 mission 1. My name's Lisa. Your students see me a lot in math chats and learning labs during their independent digital lessons. In this professional development series, we're going to examine the mathematical concepts in grade 3 mission 1 and how they connect to previously learned concepts. Before we dive into mission 1, let's review the major work of grade 3 overall. Third grade mathematics is about developing an understanding of multiplication and division and strategies for multiplication and division within 100. Developing an understanding of the structure of rectangular arrays and of area. Developing an understanding of fractions, especially unit fractions, or fractions with a numerator of 1. And finally, describing and analyzing two-dimensional shapes. The focus of mission 1 is here, where we extend students' second grade understanding of equal groups to multiplication and division. Throughout the mission, the number range is restricted to friendly numbers, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. Let's take a look at how the big idea of equal groups is going to evolve in this mission.
So there are some intentional choices we made when designing Curriculum Study that I want to highlight. First, this overview session always begins by identifying the major work of the grade to support teachers in making necessary choices as they modify and select content for students. And as you can see here, there are moments like this throughout the videos where we prompt opportunities to share and learn with colleagues. So here, participants engage with the mission overview to zero in on the big ideas of the mission. So let's keep going.
In the beginning of the mission, students will initially solve problems using repeated addition with a model drawing circles as groups. As the mission progresses, they'll arrange these into arrays, and eventually evolve the arrays into a more abstract tape diagram. Students will solve problems with varying unknowns: the total, the number of groups, and the size of groups. And with this, we'll get the opportunity to explore the relationship between multiplication and division. So while the unknown will change throughout the mission, and the models and strategies for solving will get more and more sophisticated, the focus will remain on equal groups.
So here's another opportunity to stop and reflect, this time on how the model students will use evolve throughout this mission.
Let's get a sense of where kids are headed by taking a look at a problem from the end of mission assessment.
So in this moment, teachers have the opportunity to solve a problem from that end of mission assessment. And then, after they work through it, they have the chance to analyze sample student work. This experience is designed to really zero in on the rigor of the mission as teachers explore and discuss the range of student work that they might see, building their understanding of the big ideas of math and a repertoire of effective instructional strategies.
To solve this problem, some students may use the strategy of drawing 6 groups of 4, similar to what they learned in the beginning of the mission. Others may draw an array showing 6 rows of 4. And still others may draw the more sophisticated and abstract representation, a tape diagram, showing 6 units with a 4 in each unit. By the end of the mission, students should be able to write multiplication and division sentences and identify the meaning of the equal groups and the total.
So I'll pause the video there. Following the overview video, teachers go on to examine fluency, application work, and concept development for this mission to support teachers in planning for all aspects of their instruction. In addition to curriculum study, we offer a range of implementation support to ensure that every teacher, coach, and admin feels prepared and fully supported to implement Zearn right from the start. This includes upfront teacher, coach, and administrator training, as well as access to our implementation playbook, which is a phased approach to managing implementation throughout the year. Okay, so we've looked at a lot. I want to pause and just see if there are other questions or anything else that I can cover for us while we have a few more minutes together. As folks are maybe typing in their questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.